ladies. Good, how are you?
Good. Leonard, when last season ended, where did you think you played here? Did you honestly think it was in Seattle, or what were your thoughts?
I mean, I honestly didn't know. I think I was just being open-minded to the process, being an older vet in the league. I feel like at the same time, I think I put enough good film of myself in those 8 weeks of my time I had here to put myself in good position wherever I ended up. I think I had a good enough resume to at least feel comfortable in that process of where I might end up. I'm excited that it was here.
Why was it here?
Why did I choose here? I think I built relationships here. You know, I was obviously sad about Pete leaving. He was a great coach, a big part of the reason why I made the transition to come to Seattle. He was a big part of me coming here, and we had that USC connection. He was a fun coach to play for. But even outside of the coaching staff, I built relationships in the locker room as well. And, I kind of wanted to continue with that.
Can you tell us about the process of agreeing to the deal? You were out of the country when that happened, right?
Yeah, I was in Japan at the time, and it was interesting because I'm obviously like trying to enjoy my vacation and things like that, but I was also in free agency, so it was almost like it was almost hard to enjoy my vacation because I'm like so involved in like what's going on in free agency, like what's going to happen, like where am I going to end up, all those things. And then, I'm getting a call from my agents at one point, and they're thinking that it's not going to be Seattle, and then they call me back, the next morning or even the same day, and they're like, okay, it might be Seattle. So it's like kind of like, it was like a funny limbo thing going on. But then when I finally found out that it was going to be Seattle and we all agreed to terms and things like that, I was excited. I found out at like 10 a.m. while I was in Japan, and then I got on a flight at 4:30 from Japan and landed here the next morning at like 10 a.m. And then I like signed the contract, shook hands, took pictures, and then I got on a flight back to Japan at like 7 p.m. that same day. So it was a lot of flying, but it was worth it.
When you left for the vacation that you might have to come back to sign a contract and then return to the vacation?
Yeah, I knew that was a possibility, so I think I was like prepared for it mentally,
What were you doing in Japan? I mean, go for a while?
Yeah, it was just for vacation. My girlfriend had a trip in Bali. She's like a meditation yoga instructor, so we're already going to Bali for her work. And then, Japan wasn't too far away, and I've always wanted to go. So we decided to go to Japan. We were there for 3 weeks. So that's the reason why I decided to like go back after I came here, because I was like, I still had 2 more weeks of my trip in Japan. So, if it was close to like the end of the vacation, I probably would have just like canceled those last few days, but I still had like 2 weeks left.
Did the Seahawks fly you back here?
Yeah, they flew me back. Yeah, not on a private jet though. I think that's a lot of miles on a PJ. Yeah, exactly.
What did you learn about Mike Macdonald, I guess, through the process, and that maybe wanted to make you want to stay and play for him?
I mean, I just love that he's a defensive-minded coach. I mean, he clearly had the top defense in the NFL last year, and playing for a defensive head coach really excites me. I'm playing for a guy that knows that, games are won on the defensive side of the ball, and that's how I think. I think we have a great offense. I think we have explosive playmakers, and I trust that side of the ball. But from any defensive player, I want them to think that we're going to be the ones that's going to win the game, and I think, Mike kind of shares that same mindset.
What have been your impressions being around him?
My impressions with the team and with the coaches and with Mike, as an overall feeling, you can just tell there's a sense of urgency right now. And in a way, that's kind of bringing everyone closer together. That's making everyone, be so locked in and like in meetings and in the weight room on the field. It's like you could just tell there's a different sense of like everyone's like locked in on a different level. And I remember the first day we came into the team meeting, Mike pointed out that there's empty walls in the hallways and things like that, and for a person like me, I think that made me really excited, and I hope it made the rest of the guys excited because we're obviously going to respect tradition and the history of the Seahawks, but I think it's given us like a clean foundation to like create whatever we want to be. We're not chasing to like be like any other team that's been here before. We want to create our own identity.
When you say empty walls, you mean like the pictures of the guys who played during the Carroll era, so those are all in there?
Yeah, like just the walls in the building, in the facility, things like that. He kind of wants to, create our own slogans, create our own mantras and things like that.
Leonard, obviously you didn't have a long time playing for Pete, but how different does it feel under Mike so far?
I mean, it definitely feels different. Any coaching staff is going to feel different, even if it's the same even if it's the same head coach. Sometimes even the staff underneath them can make a big difference. But I was obviously really excited coming here, playing for Pete. He's a head coach that, his type of energy and his mindset that he brought to the game was something that I wasn't used to in my career. And, I'll forever be grateful towards Pete for bringing me here. And, I was getting closer to, I'm getting older in my career. I'm about to be year 10 now. And I always reminded Pete that, him bringing me here kind of, brought back that, college, feeling to me, where it was, new and exciting again. And it, kind of, relit a fire in me. It didn't just feel like I was going to work every day. It felt like I was, having fun with my guys again. And that kind of felt like college ball, and it made me, play hard for him, you know what I mean? So, I was obviously sad to see him go, but at the same time, I understand this business. Like I said, I've been in it long enough and wish him the best and all those things.
What are you learning about Mike Macdonald's personality and or his coaching style?
I mean, I think we're still learning each other. We've only been together for 6-7 days now. So I think there's still a lot of learning between the players and coaches. We even still have new players that, player to player is still going to have a lot of learning and things like that. But like I said, I think Mike is, he's serious about being something different and creating our own identity. And like I said, I love that he's a defensive-minded guy.
Have you gotten a sense of how he would use you? I mean, would that be any different than how you've been used in the past, or how he used you or anything?
I mean, honestly, I don't even think we've gotten that deep into the playbook yet. We haven't even started to get on the field or anything like that. So I think that would be something I would be, able to answer better in the future, maybe in a month or two from now. But right now, I think we're more learning each other, trying to create a mindset on what type of team we want to be before we get into where we're going to be.
I think that was your first start for the Seahawks last year against Baltimore.
Yeah.
Their last year. I don't know if you had any time a chance to look at their defense that day at all. What
Yeah.
they were doing or anything, or what you remember about that game?
I do remember that game, and I've been watching a combination of the Cowboys film, because AD was over there, and I've been watching a combination of the Ravens film. So I'm trying to see where I'm going to play into those styles. But at the same time, like I said, I'll probably be able to answer that question better in the future.
Watching the Cowboys, what do you thought about Jonathan?
I mean, I think he's a really stout guy. I think he brings something good to the D-line, where we kind of, have been wanting a big anchor like that in the middle of the defense. He's an older vet, has a lot of wisdom and knowledge, and he's a good leader. And I think also just rotationally it's going to help as well.
You mentioned this sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
You came here at an odd time when the Seahawks get off corner or
Right.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what was the sense of urgency like last year? You know, like this is what it is now, or is it huge slate and move together and we're talking about now versus last year?
I mean, I think there was still an urgency when I first got here, because at the time they were leading the division. So there was definitely an urgency when I first got here. Closer to the end of the season, I think we needed to beat Arizona and it was some other things going. Yeah, something like that. So I think we did what we could do, which was win the game. But at the same time, you never want to finish the season where, your future is in someone else's hands. So, I mean, I think we definitely still had urgency when I first got here. Like I said, they were leading the division. But, there was definitely a down slope of those losing games that we had in a row. but we still, did what we had to do and win the game. But I think what I'm saying is the sense of urgency is just when you have a new coaching staff, there's a sense of urgency to like get to know each other and like get this thing rolling before the season starts, because there's a lot of other teams out there right now that have already been under the same coaching staff, under the same system, and they're kind of like know what to expect going into the season. Whereas like right now, we don't know what to expect from the coaches. We don't know what to expect going into the season and things like that. So we're trying to like really get the ball rolling so we know.
You've been in the league a few days now, and you got a new contract, but does the new staff give you a sense that you have to prove yourself again to a whole new group? Is that something that's
I mean, I don't think the staff is making me feel that way. I think just from being in the league and knowing the league, I think I feel that way every year. I think every year you have to prove yourself. I think, the team obviously wants to bring in like younger players to play every single year. So it's like every year I have to think that someone's trying to take my spot. You know what I mean? And I think in a way, healthily, we can like, we've talked about it as a defense, like, I want you to try to take my spot because that's going to push me. And we think that way with each other, like push me. I'm going to help the guy under me as much as I can, and I also want him to take my spot just because it's going to create more competition, which is going to push the team.
And some veterans lead the team, obviously, with Andre and Jamal. In terms of a leadership standpoint, does that allow for more words from you and from other guys to help change this culture too, or like within you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, also getting here in the middle of the season last year, I was like the new guy, so I didn't want to like step on too many toes. I obviously was like still filling people out and filling out, things like that. So I think going into this year, I feel a lot more comfortable with my position on the team, being an older guy and stepping into that leadership role. And I think we also brought in some vets, like we just talked about with Hank, to also step up into that leadership role. And, every year, like I said, is going to be a new team. Regardless if you're going back to the same team or not, it's going to be a new team every year. So, you look forward to like seeing who the leaders of the team are going to be every year.
What was the highlight of the Japan trip? Aside from the contract, I guess.
I think the contract was the highlight, but that's tough. That's a good question. I think for me, it was like seeing the culture and history. It was a lot different from America, obviously, but it was one of the places I've been. I've traveled a lot, and that was like one of the places I've been that has the most history and like respect.
Did you do anything to celebrate the contract when you got back there?
Not quite. I appreciate that though, because I have to go do that.
Where did you go in Japan?
Started off in Tokyo, went to Kyoto and Osaka, and then I finished the trip back in Tokyo. That's where the main airport is. No, not unfortunately.
So how long were you back here just to sign the contract?
Like 5-6 hours, I think.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I flew back the same day.
Being a veteran, you still get excited for draft time, or what's in your mind when it comes to this time of year?
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about the draft. I'm looking forward to see like who we bring in here. Looking forward to see what type of talent we're going to bring in on both sides of the ball. And, I definitely do my research and see, after we draft a guy, like I want to see like what type of guy they are. I obviously look at them as a player, but to me, sometimes I really try to see what type of guy they are off the field,
What are your expectations for the team?
Just to create our own identity. Like I said, like that's something that I loved about coming into the building and with the new coach. It just feels like a clean slate. It doesn't feel like we need to have pressure of like trying to chase anything. It's almost like just put one foot in front of the other and create our own identity, create our own team, and something that we can be proud of, and something that like when these rookies that are about to get drafted, they come in and they know the standard when they get here. You know what I mean? We don't have to teach them it. They're going to see from how we carry ourselves and how we react with each other. These rookies are going to know the standard when they come in.
How do you feel about Eli moving to
I'm excited. I mean, we already brought in another player, another veteran player. Like I said, it's going to help in the rotation. I think, our camaraderie is growing. We're actually about to go to Topgolf right now. You guys are holding me up. But I'm excited to keep building that camaraderie because as a D line, like communication is a huge thing. Like there's a lot of times where I may see run, somebody else may see pass. We kind of have to communicate that thing to get us playing faster. And then also like we run games and things like that a lot. So being on the same page, knowing each other off the field, and how each other communicates is a big deal.
Leonard, thinking back on it, what was the feeling like in that locker room at the end of the season, knowing that the opportunity had slipped away and kind of where you guys were at, and then the changes with the coaches and all and everything?
I mean, it was tough for me. I'm not gonna lie, just because going through the trade midseason, I was like really excited. I'm like, oh, I'm about to go to a playoff team. You know what I mean? Things like that. I obviously know things change, and I think we still fought to the end. Like I said, we still won when we had to, but it was still hard because we put our future in someone else's hands. But at the same time, I think guys, they still held their head up high. It wasn't too many like sad faces or anything like that, but. I think even at the end of that, there was a little bit of sense of urgency in each other's eyes and the way we talked to each other about coming back for this year.
Anything else? Thank you.
Yeah.